I have to be honest with you. I woke up this morning with a bit of an existential crisis.
Oh boy, that sounds serious.
It is, because I've always operated under this very distinct and maybe, incredibly naive assumption about how people interact.
Okay, listening.
I thought that when two people disagree, whether it's about politics or where to go for dinner, the goal of that conversation is to find the truth.
Right, the logical endpoint.
Exactly. You put your facts on the table, I put my facts on the table, we mix them around, and the best, most logical idea wins.
That is a beautiful sentiment. It's noble, it's optimistic, and in the real world, it is an absolute recipe for getting crushed.
Which is exactly what I'm realizing, because we've been going through this stack of research for today's deep dive, and it's all centered on Madsen Piri's book, How to Win Every Argument. And my worldview is, frankly, a little shattered.
I can see why.
We aren't talking about a logic textbook here. This feels more like defense against the dark arts, or actually maybe just the dark arts manual itself.
It depends on your intent, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you're right. Piri isn't teaching you how to be correct. He's teaching you how to win.
And those are two very, very different sports.
Completely different. Being right means you have the facts on your side. Winning means you get the audience or, your opponent to submit. Doesn't matter how.
That distinction is just crucial.
Precisely. If you look at the publisher's warning on this book, which I absolutely love, by the way, it basically says, in the wrong hands, this book is dangerous.
That's quite the disclaimer.
It is. They recommend you arm yourself with it while hoping your friends and family never, ever find a copy. It frames the content not as education, but as weaponry.
It sounds like marketing hype until you actually start reading the entries. Piri says the goal is to make you maddeningly smart.
Maddeningly smart. He wants you to be that person at the dinner table who can just dismantle anyone, regardless of whether you actually know what you're talking about.
That's the scary part, isn't it?
That's the core of it. You don't need to be an expert in the subject matter to win the argument. You just need to be expert in the structure of the argument.
So it's about form over content.
Totally. In a formal logic class, a fallacy is an error. It's a mistake in the math of your reasoning. But Piri argues that in the real world, a fallacy isn't a mistake. It's a maneuver. It's a combat trick.
So if I use a fallacy, I'm not messing up, I'm hacking the system.
You are hacking human psychology. Exactly. If you know how to use these errors effectively, you can bypass the brain's logical centers and hit people right in the gut. You can make someone who's telling the absolute truth look like a fool.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We're going to open up this arsenal. We're going to look at everything from how to destroy a person's character to how to manipulate numbers and twist language.
But we have to be clear.
Right. We aren't endorsing being a manipulator.
No. Think of this as a vaccination. You need to be exposed to a little bit of the virus so your immune system can recognize it.
That's a good way to put it.
When you hear a politician or a salesman or your uncle of Thanksgiving use one of these tricks, we want you to be able to spot it instantly.
And maybe, just maybe, if you're in a pinch, you'll know how to throw a punch back.
A little mischief is allowed, within reason.
Okay, let's open the toolkit. We're organizing this by strategy. And the first strategy is, well, it's the most brutal and probably the most common.
I know where you're going with this.
If you can't beat the argument, you beat the man.
The ad hominem family. Latin for to the man.
This is the low-hanging fruit of internet comments everywhere. But what I found fascinating is how Piri breaks it down into these specific types. They're much more nuanced than just name-calling.
Right, it's not just shouting, you're an idiot, that's too crude. It's too obvious. A true ad hominem is arguing that a claim is false because of something objectionable about the person making it.
Okay, so let's start with the classic, the abusive ad hominem. Let's look at the scenario with Dr. Green.
This is a perfect illustration. So imagine someone stands up in a town hall and says, Dr. Green argues very plausibly for adding fluoride to the water supply to prevent cavities.
Okay, sounds like a scientific debate. I'm listening to the evidence. I'm thinking about chemistry, tooth decay, public health.
But then the opponent stands up and says, that's all well and good, but what he doesn't tell us is that he is the same Dr. Green who 10 years ago published articles arguing in favor of infanticide.
Whoa. Okay, I'm immediately recoiling. My brain just did a complete 180.
Right. The visceral reaction is, this guy is a monster. But pause for a second. Let's apply strict logic here. Does Dr. Green's, let's say his questionable opinion on the morality of infanticide, change the chemical interaction between fluoride and tooth enamel?
Logically. No, of course not. Chemistry is chemistry. If a murderer tells me that 2 + 2 = 4, he's still right.
Exactly. The truth of the proposition is independent of the source. But in that room, the argument is over. Dr. Green is lost. He's been tainted.
Oh, wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Doesn't character matter? I mean, if Dr. Green has terrible judgment in one area, like a really, really terrible one, shouldn't I mistrust his judgment on water safety? Is it really a fallacy to say, I just don't trust this guy?
That is the trap. And it's such a tempting one. In a court of law, character matters for credibility. We use it to judge witnesses. But in pure logic, it's zero sum.
Okay.
If the facts about fluoride are true, they remain true even if the devil himself is presenting them. The fallacy lies in transferring the disgust you feel for the person onto the facts. You aren't debating the water anymore, you're debating the man.
And that's why it wins.
It's so much easier to hate a person than to understand chemistry.
That makes perfect sense. It's an efficiency hack for the brain. Bad man equals bad ideas. Done. Move on.
And that leads us to the next version, which I think is even more insidious because it sounds so reasonable. The ad hominem circumstantial.
This is the vested interest attack.
The catchphrase here, and you've heard this a million times, is, well, he would say that, wouldn't he?
Oh, constantly. We see this all the time in policy debates. Let's say an executive from a major oil company releases a white paper arguing that carbon capture technology is the best solution for climate change.
What is the immediate gut reaction from the public?
He's an oil guy. Of course he'd say that. He just wants to keep pumping oil. He's shilling for his bonus.
And what happens to the white paper?
It's dismissed without ever being read.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We dismiss the argument because of the arguer's circumstances. But Petrie points out something really sharp here. Just because the man is an oil executive and just because he has a financial interest doesn't automatically mean he is wrong about the technology.
He might actually be the person who knows the most about the technology. He could have the most data.
He might be the only one with the data, but the circumstantial fallacy allows you to bypass all of that complexity. You don't have to read the complex report. You just point at his job title or his bank account and you say bias, and the audience just nods along. It feels smart.
It appeals to our cynicism. We love to believe that everyone is motivated by greed.
It creates this situation where certain people are just not allowed to have an opinion. If a rich man argues for tax cuts, he's greedy. If a poor man argues for tax cuts, he's a dupe who's been tricked.
Oh, so you attack the circumstance, never the idea itself.
Never.
There's one more in this attack the person category that I found particularly devious. It's called poisoning the well.
This is preemptive sabotage. It's brilliant. The other ad hominems happen after someone speaks. Poisoning the well happens before they even open their mouth.
The example in the source material actually made me laugh because it's so brazen. Someone walks up to the podium and says, "Everyone except an idiot knows that not enough money is spent on education."
It's a brilliant trap. Just think about the geometry of that sentence. If you want to stand up and argue that actually the budget is sufficient and maybe the money is just being spread inefficiently, what have you just done?
I've just self-identified as an idiot to the entire room.
Exactly. You have to accept the insult in order to even participate in the debate. The speaker has poisoned the water so that anyone who drinks from it dies, conversationally speaking.
It effectively silences opposition before the debate can even begin. You see this in social circles, too. Only a heartless person would vote against this bill.
And boom, suddenly, all the people who have legitimate, logical concerns about the unintended consequences of the bill just stay quiet because they don't want to be labeled heartless.
It shifts the burden from, is this bill good, to, are you a good person?
A battle almost no one wants to fight.
It reminds me of the genetic fallacy, which is also in this section, which sounds biological, but it's not. It's actually about history.
Yes, the genetic fallacy is damning an idea because of its origin, where it came from, or who said it first.
The ultimate example, which ends almost every internet argument ever, Hitler liked dogs.
Right, and the supposed logic goes, Hitler was evil, Hitler liked dogs, therefore liking dogs is evil.
When you put it that way, it's just completely absurd.
But we do it with ideas all the time. The source mentions the trains running on time trope.
Mussolini wanted the trains to run on time.
So if you are a mayor today who campaigns on improving public transit schedules and making things more efficient, are you a fascist?
No, I just want to get to work on time.
But the genetic fallacy allows your opponent to say, that's a fascist idea. They smear the origin to taint the current application. And that stain is incredibly difficult to wash off.
So the big takeaway for attacking the person is that it works because it's a shortcut, it's lazy, it saves us from having to do the hard work of actually analyzing the claim.
And it triggers our tribal instincts. We just want to know who is good and who is bad.
Yeah.
If you can successfully paint the opponent as bad, you win the tribe over to your side.
Okay, but let's say you're arguing with someone you can't attack. Maybe they're a saint, maybe they're your grandmother. You can't go ad hominem. So you have to go after the words they use.
This is where we get into the linguistic fallacies, the traps of language itself.
I love this section because it highlights how slippery English really is. We think we're being clear, but we so often aren't. The first one is accent.
And this isn't about having a French or German accent. It's about prosodic stress. Which word do you emphasize in a sentence?
The meaning changes completely depending on where the punch lands. The example is so simple. The sentence, light your cigarette.
Simple instruction, 3 words. But shift the accent. Light your cigarette.
Meaning, don't like mine, light your own.
Or light your cigarette.
Meaning, for the love of God, don't light the tablecloth on fire.
Now, imagine this in a political context. A politician says, I never said we should raise taxes.
Implying maybe we should broaden them or enforce them better or some other nuance.
But if you quote him in the newspaper without the italics, or if an opponent reads it with a different stress, I never said we should raise taxes, it can sound like he was talking about raising something else entirely.
You can quote someone word for word and still completely lie about what they meant just by shifting the emphasis.
It's a form of gaslighting. It's creating a straw man out of someone's tone.
Then there's amphibole, which sounds like a tropical disease, but is actually just bad grammar.
It's ambiguity caused by careless sentence structure. Peary gives a hilarious example from, I think, a naval report. The Duchess has a fine ship, but she has barnacles on her bottom.
I mean, I'm assuming the she refers to the ship, I hope.
You assume.
Yeah.
But the grammar is loose enough that I could argue the Duchess has a personal hygiene problem.
So why is this a weapon? It just sounds like a mistake someone would make.
It's a weapon for people who want to hedge their bets. Prophets, fortune tellers, and economists absolutely love amphibole. Think of the oracle at Delphi. If Croesus crosses the Halys River, a great empire will fall.
And he thought, awesome, I'm going to destroy the Persians.
He crossed, he lost, and his own empire fell. The oracle was right either way. If you want to be unpinnable in an argument, use sentences that can be read 2 ways. Then when the outcome happens, you just say, see, that's what I meant all along.
That connects to equivocation. This feels similar, but it's about changing the definition of a single word halfway through the logic.
This is the classic bait and switch. Peary uses a famous philosophical syllogism to show how dangerous this is. Premise 1, happiness is the end of life.
Okay, meaning end, as in the goal, the purpose, the telos.
Exactly. Premise 2, the end of life is death.
Meaning end, as in the termination, the finish.
And the conclusion, therefore, happiness is death.
That is incredibly goth
Yeah.
and also completely wrong.
It's moody, but it's false. The word end has 2 different meanings, and the argument just slides between them without telling you.
We see this in corporate speak all the time. The example, your letter will receive the attention it fully deserves.
Oh, that is a masterpiece of equivocation. You think attention means careful reading and consideration?
Right.
They mean the trash can. The word deserves is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It allows you to be technically honest while being completely deceptive.
And if you get caught, if someone pins you down on your equivocation, you just pivot to definitional retreat.
This is the, oh, I didn't mean that maneuver.
Exactly. Let's say we're arguing about travel. You say, my cousin has never been abroad. And I say, actually, he went to Boulogne, France last year on a day trip.
And to save face, instead of admitting I'm wrong, I say, you can't call Boulogne abroad. It's a ferry ride. It's practically England.
Notice what happened. You didn't admit you were wrong. You just tightened the definition of abroad to conveniently exclude the evidence that proved you wrong.
It's the no true Scotsman fallacy, isn't it? No true Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge, but my friend Angus does. Well, Angus isn't a true Scotsman.
That's the one. It makes your position invulnerable because you keep shrinking the territory to defend it. It's incredibly frustrating to argue against because the goalposts are on wheels.
Okay, so we've covered attacking the person and twisting their words. Now let's talk about the heavy hitters. The fallacies that bypass the brain entirely and go straight for the heart. The appeals to emotion.
This is where logic goes to die, and where arguments are often won.
The first one is ad misericordiam, the appeal to pity.
This is the sob story defense. In a courtroom, a lawyer might say, gentlemen of the jury, How can you convict this man of bank robbery? Look at his weeping wife in the front row. Look at his poor children who will be destitute without him.
It's heartbreaking. You feel terrible.
It is. But I have to ask the cold, hard question. Does the sadness of his wife prove that he didn't steal the money?
No. But we feel like a monster for even thinking that.
And that's the point. Peter brings up A Christmas Carol here, and I think this is such a provocative take. We all hate Scrooge, right? He's the villain.
Of course. The ultimate villain of Christmas.
But look at the argument he has with Bob Cratchit about taking Christmas Day off. Scrooge argues that it's unfair to pay a man for a day's work when he isn't working, logically, economically, based on the pure contract of employment. Scrooge is correct.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. But Cratchit wins the audience because he's shivering and poor and has Tiny Tim at home.
Cratchit wins through ad misericordiam. Our pity for his situation completely overrides the economic logic of the argument.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing in life. We value mercy.
In life, no. But in an argument about facts, pity is a distraction. If you want to win, though, makes them cry. If you can make the audience feel sorry for you or for your side, they will suspend their critical thinking.
But what if you can't make them cry? Then you make them scared.
Ad baculum, the appeal to force.
This isn't really an argument, is it? It's just a threat.
It's the mafia fallacy. Nice little argument you have there. Be a real shame if something happened to it.
The example in the book is chillingly polite. It would be better if you told us what we want to know. We wouldn't want your aged mother to suffer, would we?
It replaces reason with fear. But we see softer versions of this everywhere. In the workplace. I'm not saying you have to agree with the new policy, but people who disagree tend to find themselves on the layoff list.
That effectively shuts down the debate before it starts.
It's the ultimate trump card. If I have a stick and you have a perfectly formed syllogism, I win. It's invalid logic, but it's very effective pragmatism.
Okay, unless, of course, I have a famous person on my side. Then I can use ad verecundiam, the appeal to false authority.
Oh, we live in the golden age of this fallacy. It's the engine of influencer marketing.
The cologne of the stars.
Or the actor who plays a doctor on a TV show who is now selling you a prescription drug.
Or a YouTuber I like telling me which VPN to buy.
Right. And Pindery asks the fundamental question. Why does being a good actor mean you understand the biochemistry of enzyme action washing powders?
It doesn't. At all. But we have this cognitive bias, this halo effect. If someone is beautiful and famous and successful, we just assume they're smart about everything.
And advertisers exploit this ruthlessly. They are banking on the fact that you will transfer the authority and affection you feel for the star onto the product.
It saves me the trouble of checking if the product is actually good. If it's good enough for George Clooney, it's good enough for me.
And if George Clooney isn't enough, just say everyone is doing it. That's ad populum.
You appeal to the people, the bandwagon. 50 million Frenchmen can't be wrong.
Spoiler alert. They absolutely can be.
They frequently are.
History is essentially a long, long list of times when the majority was completely, utterly, and dangerously wrong. The majority thought the earth was flat. The majority in many places thought slavery was acceptable.
But in the moment, standing against the mob is terrifying.
That's why it works. It appeals to our deep-seated fear of being an outsider. If a politician says, everyone knows this, or the American people want this, they are daring you personally to call the entire population stupid. It isolates you.
It frames the debate as you versus the world.
A fight you're not likely to win.
Okay, let's shift gears. We've done the emotional manipulation. Now I want to get into the stuff that looks like logic but is actually a mirage. The nerdier side of deception, causality and numbers.
This is dangerous territory because it wears a lab coat. It looks scientific and official.
And the king of this is post hoc ergo propter hoc.
A mouthful of Latin for a very simple idea. After this, therefore because of this.
The example from the source material is one of my favorites. It cites a statistical correlation between the introduction of canned peas in the early 20th century and the simultaneous rise in the illegitimate birth rate.
It's a perfect graph. Canned peas hit the market and boom, out of wedlock births just skyrocket. The lines move together perfectly.
So logically, the only conclusion is that canned peas cause immorality.
Obviously. The peas are clearly a powerful aphrodisiac. It's the only explanation.
But seriously, we do this all the time. I wore my lucky socks to the game and my team won, therefore the socks caused the win.
We are pattern-seeking machines. We are desperate for the world to be a causal narrative, for things to make sense. If B follows A, we leap to the conclusion that A caused B.
But so often there's a third factor.
Right, a lurking variable.
Yeah.
Maybe the P's and the birth rate both went up because society was becoming more prosperous and urbanized, and there were massive social changes happening at the same time.
Or maybe it's just total random coincidence.
And that leads directly to cum hoc ergo propter hoc. This is when things happen at the same time. Correlation, not causation.
The story here is the tourist and the peasant.
Right. A tourist on a train offers a peasant a banana. The peasant has never seen a banana before in his life. He takes a bite.
And at that exact second, the train enters a pitch black tunnel.
And the peasant screams, "Don't eat it. It makes you blind."
To him, the evidence is irrefutable, 100%. Bite banana equals darkness.
It's immediate, powerful, and completely wrong. But how often do we look at two lines on a chart moving together and say, aha, this caused that? Politicians do this constantly with the economy. I got elected and employment went up. Therefore, I caused the jobs.
Maybe. Or maybe the global economy just recovered on its own cycle.
But you're not going to win an election with that kind of nuance.
Speaking of misunderstanding probability, we have to talk about the gambler's fallacy.
This is the one that builds casinos. It bankrupts people.
The scenario is the roulette wheel. It's simple. Red has come up 5 times in a row.
You're standing there, you've got your chips, all your money is on the line. What do you bet on?
You bet big on black. Because black is due. It has to be.
It's due. That feeling is so powerful. It feels like a law of the universe. The universe requires balance. If there's been too much red, there must be a black coming to even the score.
But the wheel is just a piece of spinning wood and metal.
The wheel has no memory. The little white ball has no memory. The odds of black are exactly the same on the 6th spin as they were on the 1st spin. The universe does not owe you a correction.
But we apply this to everything, not just gambling. We do it in sports. He hasn't hit a home run in a while. He's due.
We do it in the stock market.
Yeah.
The market's been up for too long, it has to correct. Well, maybe. Or maybe it just keeps going up. When you rely on the gambler's fallacy, you are betting on a law of physics that doesn't exist. You're betting on karma in a random system.
And if you want to use this as a weapon, how do you do it?
You sell the correction. You tell people you've had a run of bad luck. The law of averages says your luck is about to turn. Keep investing. Double down. It's incredibly persuasive because it offers hope disguised as math.
Which segues perfectly into false precision. This is where you use numbers to lie.
This is the fake decimal point strategy. It's about giving an illusion of scientific rigor.
The example is just brilliant. Scots are 63% more generous than the Welsh.
Wait a second. How are we measuring generosity? Is there a unit? A generometer? What does that even mean?
It's absurd on its face. But the number 63% makes it sound like I've done a peer-reviewed study. If I just said Scots are more generous, you'd argue. But 63%? That shucks you up.
It mimics the language of science to borrow its authority. You see this in advertising constantly. Our mouthwash is twice as good.
Twice as good as what? As just rinsing with water. As the leading brand. As it was last year.
Doesn't matter. The precision is the argument. It intimidates the opponent because they assume you have data that they don't have.
So if someone throws a weirdly specific number at you, that's a big red flag.
Always ask, how is that measured? The answer is usually a lot of mumbling or, we made it up.
Okay, we're in the home stretch here. We've covered attacking people, twisting words, emotional appeals, and fake math. Now let's talk about the evasion techniques. These are the strategies for when you are losing. You are cornered. You need an escape hatch.
The smoke bombs of rhetoric.
The first one is the straw man.
This is the absolute staple of modern political discourse. It's everywhere.
So how does it work exactly?
You don't fight the real opponent. That's too hard. Their argument might be strong. So you build a dummy version of their argument. A scarecrow, a straw man that is ridiculous, extreme, and easy to knock down. Then you set the scarecrow on fire and claim victory.
Let's role play this. I'll be the reasonable person. I think we should liberalize marijuana laws to reduce the burden on the court system and raise tax revenue.
And I reply, oh, so you want to have unrestricted access to hard drugs available to children in school vending machines. You want to destroy the work ethic of the entire nation and see society crumble.
Whoa. I didn't say any of that. Not even close.
It doesn't matter. I've shifted the debate from your nuanced point about liberalizing marijuana to my extreme version of giving drugs to kids. I can win the argument against giving drugs to kids. That's an easy fight.
And the audience watches you body slam this extreme position that I never held, and they think, wow, he really destroyed that point.
And Petery suggests, quite cynically, that the best time to do this is when the opponent isn't in the room.
Of course, so they can't defend themselves.
If you aren't there to say, hey, I didn't say that, I can paint you as an absolute lunatic. It's what so much of social media does. It's called nitpicking.
Yeah.
You find the craziest, most extreme person on the other side, pretend they represent the whole movement, and then mock them into oblivion.
And if the straw man fails, you can try the red herring.
Named after the old practice of dragging a smelly fish, a kippered herring, across a trail to distract hunting dogs from the real scent.
It's a pure distraction.
It's the "look over there, a squirrel" tactic. The classic example. Wife says, "You never remember my birthday." And the husband replies, "Did I ever tell you what beautiful eyes you have?"
That is so transparent, but it might work.
It might. If the compliment is good enough or the distraction is juicy enough, the hounds lose the scent. In a formal debate, if you are asked a tough question about the budget deficit, you pivot. That's an important question. But what we really need to be focused on today is honoring our brave troops overseas.
And now, if I try to bring you back to the budget, I look like the bad guy who doesn't care about the troops.
Exactly. You use a highly emotional but completely irrelevant topic to lure the audience away from the danger zone.
There's a more sophisticated version of this called ignoratio elenchi, the irrelevant thesis.
This is proving a valid point that just happens to address the wrong issue.
The example from the book. I oppose this measure to permit students to leave school early, and I will prove my case by demonstrating the immense value of education.
And you then give a soaring, beautiful 20-minute speech about how education enriches the soul, builds character, and strengthens democracy.
And everyone applauds because everything you said was true.
But you haven't actually proved that leaving school early is bad. You've just proved education is good. Those are two different arguments. But because you proved something true and nobler, the audience assumes you proved your point true.
It's the politician's pivot. Answer the question you wish you were asked, not the one you were actually asked.
And finally, the ultimate evasion. When all else fails. Shifting the burden of proof.
So I say, I believe there is a secret society of invisible, teleporting gnomes living in my garden.
And I say, that's ridiculous. There's no evidence for that.
And I triumphantly reply, but can you prove I'm wrong?
Of course I can't prove you're wrong. They're invisible and they can teleport.
Aha! Therefore, they must exist.
This is the engine of every conspiracy theory on the planet. The person making the extraordinary claim about the gnomes has the burden of proof. You have to show me the gnomes. But this fallacy cunningly shifts the work to the skeptic. Prove it's not aliens.
It effectively makes anything possible as long as it can't be 100% disproven.
Which is pretty much everything that's interesting and unfalsifiable.
We are into the final section now, section 6. The specialized and, as Peary calls them, beautiful fallacies. These are the artisanal, handcrafted ones.
These are specific tools for very specific jobs. The scalpels of rhetoric.
The abusive analogy, we talked about ad hominem, but this is ad hominem with poetry.
It's an insult wrapped in a clever metaphor. The example Peary gives is fantastic. He knows as much about ships as an Armenian band leader.
It's so specific. Why Armenian? Why a band leader?
It doesn't matter. The image is so ludicrous. This guy in a uniform with a baton trying to captain a giant ship that it just ticks in your brain. Or the classic political insult. His speech was like a Texas Longhorn. A point here, a point there, but a whole lot of bull in between.
It's basically a meme before memes existed.
It is. It bypasses logic because it makes you laugh. And if you can make the audience laugh at your opponent, you've won. The image persists long after any facts are forgotten.
Then there's Thatcher's blame. This one felt very, very relevant to how we talk about leaders today.
It's named after the UK opposition's strategy towards Margaret Thatcher. The game is to be against whatever is done, regardless of the outcome.
It's the damned if you do, damned if you don't framework.
Exactly. If she acts quickly, the opposition calls it reckless and hasty. If she consults people and acts slowly, they call it dithering and delayed.
If she listens to advice, she's weak and indecisive. If she doesn't, she's stubborn and arrogant.
The actual action doesn't matter. The hostile adjective is pre-selected. It denies the existence of a middle ground or a correct choice. It's a way of looking like a sharp critic without actually engaging with the policy. You just apply the negative label to whatever happens.
The runaway train. This is the slippery slope argument on steroids.
The argument is, if we start this, we can never, ever stop. It's a one-way track to doom. If we lower the speed limit from 55 to 50, eventually we'll all be required to put our cars in reverse.
It assumes that society has no brakes, that we are incapable of making distinctions.
It assumes we can't draw a line. If we allow gay marriage, what's next? People marrying their dogs. It's pure fear-mongering. It ignores the fact that we draw arbitrary but necessary lines in law and society every single day. We can lower the speed limit without banning cars.
But it's effective because it paints this vivid, terrifying picture of a disastrous future.
It leverages our deep fear of losing control.
Now, I need you to explain this next one, because I have definitely misused this phrase my whole life. The exception that proves the rule.
Ah, yes. Everyone gets this one wrong. People use it to mean, oh, look, here's an exception, which somehow magically confirms that my rule is still true, which is absolute logical nonsense.
Right. If I say all swans are white and you show me a black swan from Australia.
That disproves the rule. The rule is broken. Finished.
So why do people say it proves the rule?
Poe explains the etymology. The word prove used to mean to test. Think of a proving ground for weapons, or the old saying, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. It means the test.
So the phrase originally meant the exception tests the rule.
Exactly. And in the case of the black swan, the exception fails the test. The rule is broken. But today, people use this fallacy to dismiss awkward counter-evidence. They treat the exception as if it's just a quirky little outlier that doesn't really count, and it lets them keep their prejudice. He's just the exception that proves the rule. It's a thought-terminating cliche.
And speaking of thought-terminating cliches, every schoolboy knows.
This is just intellectual bullying, pure and simple.
As anyone with half a brain can see.
It's a way of securing agreement by shaming the audience into silence. If I stand up and say, as every schoolboy knows, the Treaty of Utrecht was signed in 1713, and you didn't know that.
I am definitely not going to raise my hand and admit my ignorance in front of everyone.
Of course not. You just nod along because you don't want to look dumber than a hypothetical and probably fictional schoolboy. It's silences opposition through insecurity.
We have covered an immense amount of ground. My brain is just buzzing with all the ways I've been tricked and have probably tricked others in the last week alone.
It's like seeing the code in the Matrix, isn't it? Once you see the structure of these fallacies, you can't unsee them. They're everywhere.
So this brings us to the end, and the final big question, is winning really the goal? Perry wrote the book on how to win, but should we use these tools?
Peary ends with a warning, but also with one last fascinating fallacy. The argumentum ad lapidem, the appeal to the stone.
This is the Dr. Johnson story, right?
That's the one.
Yeah.
The philosopher Bishop Berkeley had this complex, internally consistent logical theory that matter doesn't actually exist. It's all just perception in the mind of God. Dr. Johnson, the famous writer, was asked to refute it, and he couldn't refute the logic.
So what did you do?
He just walked over, kicked a large stone as hard as he could, and said, I refute it thus.
He just kicked a rock. That was his argument.
He ignored the argument. He dismissed it with a contemptuous gesture. And Peary suggests that sometimes that is the ultimate winning move. You just refuse to play the game. You say that's ridiculous and walk away.
It ends the argument for sure.
It does. But is it satisfying? Probably not. The real win, I think, and the reason we're doing this deep dive is not in using these tricks to deceive people. It's in using this knowledge as a shield.
A defense system, an immunity.
Exactly. When you turn on the news tonight or scroll through social media, you are going to see these fallacies. You'll see the straw man. You'll see the red herring. You'll see the ad hominem in every other comment.
And instead of getting angry or getting tricked,
you can just calmly name it. Oh, that's a false dilemma. Oh, look, that's poisoning the well. And the moment you can name it, it loses its power over you. You become immune to the manipulation.
That feels like the real superpower here. Being maddeningly smart isn't about crushing your friends. It's about not being crushed by the world.
I couldn't agree more. That's the whole point.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. We want you to pick one fallacy we discussed today. Just one. Straw man, appeal to pity, whatever you like. And keep it in the front of your mind this week. Watch for it.
You will not have to wait long, I promise.
And when you spot it in an ad, in a news report, in a meeting, just give yourself a little mental high five. You're seeing the code.
And you're one step closer to being the most formidable, clear-thinking person in the room.
Thank you for diving in with us. And remember, you should definitely subscribe and leave us a 5-star review because everyone is doing it. And 50 million listeners can't be wrong.
Ad populum. Nicely done.
I'm learning. See you next time.